Have you ever wanted something so badly? It hurt. She never told anyone how long she'd been watching him. Not in a creepy way, more like how a painter studies light, noticing how it falls across a familiar face. Daniel, the man who walked through the office every morning with quiet confidence, a soft half-smile, and a sense of calm that seemed impossible in the chaos of deadlines and ringing phones. Emily had worked in that marketing firm for 3 years, sitting just 3 desks away from him, and yet it always felt like an entire world stood between them. Every day began the same. Daniel walked in with his coffee, greeted the receptionist, by name, asked the interns how they were doing, but never once looked at Emily long enough to see the quiet admiration in her eyes. He wasn't rude, just unreachable. The kind of person whose presence filled the room without demanding attention. And maybe that was what drew her in the most. His simplicity. It wasn't love at first sight. It was slower, quieter, and more dangerous. The kind that crept in during long meetings, during shared laughter at team lunches, and in those silent moments when she caught him staring out the window as if searching for something the city could never give. She told herself it was just admiration, that she liked his dedication, his focus. But when she started noticing the small things, how he rolled up his sleeves when he was deep in thought, how he pressed his thumb against his temple when stressed, she knew it wasn't just admiration anymore. It was longing. A kind that sat heavy in her chest. Still, she never made a move. She was shy, not the type to chase. So, she built small worlds in her head instead. What if he smiled at her one day? What if they stayed late at work and talked? For hours? What if he finally saw her? Really saw her? That what if lived in her mind for months. Until one Friday evening, it became real. The office was almost empty. Most people had already left for the weekend. Emily was packing up when Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Hey, Emily. Do you have a minute?" Her heart jumped. She turned, trying not to look too surprised. "Sure." He held up a folder. "I need help with the presentation for Monday. I can't get the transitions right. You're good at this stuff." For a moment, she just stared. Daniel, the man she'd been quietly in love with, was asking her for help. "Of course," she said quickly, hoping he couldn't hear the tremor in her voice. They sat side by side in the small conference room, the air conditioner humming softly above them. The city lights blinked outside the window as their laptops glowed in the dimness. Every click, every keystroke, felt amplified. Time seemed to slow down. Daniel leaned forward, frowning at the screen. "You think we should simplify this slide?" "Maybe," Emily said, trying to sound casual. "Sometimes less is more." He laughed lightly. "I should remember that. I tend to overcomplicate things." His laugh, soft, genuine, did something to her heart. It was the kind of sound that could warm even the coldest night. They kept working, talking about random things between edits. Movies, travel, music. She learned that he liked quiet cafes more than loud bars, that he had a sister who lived in Vancouver, and that he hated olives. It was strange how easily the conversation flowed. For years, she had rehearsed words in her head, afraid she'd sound awkward. But now, sitting across from him, everything felt natural. As the clock struck 10, Daniel stretched, sighing. "Thanks, Emily. You saved me tonight." She smiled. "You did most of it." He shook his head. "No, you have a good eye. You notice details." Something in his tone made her heart skip. It wasn't just a compliment. It was acknowledgement. The kind she'd been craving for so long. For a brief second, silence filled the room. Not the heavy kind, but something gentle. The kind that makes you aware of every heartbeat. Their eyes met. The air between them changed. And then, just as quickly, Daniel looked away. We should probably go. It's late. She nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. They packed their things. He walked her to the elevator, polite as always. The quiet hum of the building echoed around them. When the doors opened, he turned to her and smiled, a real unguarded smile. "Have a good weekend, Emily." "You too," she whispered. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed every second, the laughter, the glances, the easy rhythm they shared. She lay awake, smiling like a teenager, whispering to herself, "He finally noticed me." Saturday morning, she woke up early, excited to see him again on Monday. She even went out to buy a new outfit, something subtle but elegant. For the first time in months, she felt hope. But Monday came, and Daniel didn't. At first, she thought he was running late. Then an hour passed, then 2. His desk remained empty. His mug, still half full from Friday, sat untouched. By noon, the whispers started. "Did you hear?" one of the co-workers murmured. Daniel took a leave. "A leave? Why?" another asked. "No idea. The boss said it was sudden. Family emergency, maybe." Emily's stomach dropped. She opened her email. Nothing from him. No message, no explanation, just silence. For the rest of the day, she kept glancing at his desk, expecting him to walk in, to smile, to say something, anything. But he didn't. And as the week went by, it became clear he wasn't coming back anytime soon. The office felt colder without him. His laughter, his quiet focus, gone. She hated how much space his absence took up. Every corner of the office reminded her of him. One evening, as she packed her things, she found the pen he'd lent her that Friday night. It still had a faint trace of his handwriting on the side. She held it for a long moment, then placed it in her drawer, as if keeping a piece of him close would make the distance hurt less. Days turned into weeks. People stopped talking about him. Projects moved on. Life moved on. But Emily didn't. Not really. Every time she passed the conference room, she remembered that night. The glow of the screen, the quiet laughter, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, something was beginning. Now she realized it had ended before it even started. And yet, deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel's story with her wasn't over. Something about the way he'd smiled that last night. It didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like a pause. So she waited. Every day, she checked her inbox, hoping for a message. Every evening, she walked past the cafe near the office where he sometimes went after work, scanning the faces inside. Nothing. Still, she held on to that small moment, the one where he'd looked at her like she mattered. Because for someone who had lived most of her life being overlooked, that one look was everything. But the universe has a strange way of testing hearts that love quietly. And as another Friday evening came, the same golden sunset, the same quiet streets, Emily stood by the office window, staring at the city below, wondering if he was out there somewhere thinking of her too. She whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. Maybe he'll come back. But deep down, a part of her already knew. Something had changed forever. The person she'd waited for, the man who'd finally noticed her, had disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. And as the lights flickered across the empty office, Emily realized she didn't just miss Daniel. She missed the version of herself that existed when he was around. Hopeful, brave, alive. She wanted that feeling back. Yet, for now, all she had was silence, and one unanswered question that kept echoing in her mind. What happened to Daniel? 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since Daniel disappeared. 3 endless weeks of empty mornings, unanswered emails, and a coffee cup still sitting on his desk, as if he'd just stepped out for a moment and forgotten to return. Emily had tried to move on, to fill her days with meetings and reports. But no matter how busy she stayed, her mind kept drifting back to that night in the conference room, the sound of his laugh, the warmth in his voice, the way he had said her name, softly, like it meant something. But now, the only thing that spoke was silence. It followed her everywhere, in the hum of the office printer, in the half-empty elevator rides, in the walk back home where the city lights blurred into thoughts she couldn't shake off. Then one rainy afternoon, everything changed. It was a Sunday, and Emily had gone out to clear her head. The sky was gray, the streets slick with reflections of red traffic lights. She stopped by a small cafe near the river, the kind of place Daniel used to mention in passing, saying they made the best cinnamon lattes in the city. She hadn't planned to go in, but something, maybe instinct, maybe longing, pulled her through the door, and there he was, sitting by the window, hands wrapped around a coffee cup, eyes fixed on the rain outside. He looked different, quieter, thinner, like someone who had been carrying too much weight and not enough rest. For a moment she couldn't move. Her heart froze, her breath caught halfway. After weeks of waiting, of wondering if she'd ever see him again, there he was, just a few steps away. "Daniel?" she whispered, almost afraid the sound would break the moment. He turned. His eyes widened, then softened. "Emily." The way he said her name made the world stop for a second. "I can't believe it's you," she said, walking over, her hands trembling. He smiled faintly. "You found me." They stared at each other for a moment that felt too long to be casual and too short to be enough. Then he gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." She nodded, sitting down carefully as if any sudden move would make him vanish again. The silence between them was heavy, not awkward, just full of everything left unsaid. Finally he spoke. "I should have called," he said quietly. "I just couldn't," Emily frowned. "Everyone thought you quit." I didn't quit," he interrupted softly. "My father passed away." The words hit her like a wave. She blinked, unsure what to say. "Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry," he nodded, eyes downcast. "It happened suddenly. I had to fly back home, handle everything. It was a lot." She could see the exhaustion in his face, the kind that doesn't come from work, but from grief. "You could have told someone, told me." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "I didn't want anyone to see me like that. Especially not you." Something in her chest tightened. "Why not me?" Daniel hesitated, then gave a sad smile. "Because you always looked at me like I had it all figured out." "I didn't want to ruin that." Her throat went dry. She hadn't realized he'd noticed the way she looked at him, or that it mattered to him. The rain outside turned heavier, tapping softly against the window. For a while they just sat there, listening, two people caught between the past and what could have been. "So," he said finally, breaking the silence. "How's the office?" She shrugged. "The same. A bit quieter, though." He smiled faintly. "Without my bad jokes?" She laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. "Something like that." He leaned back, watching her. "I missed this," he said, "just talking." "Me too," she admitted. And just like that, the heaviness began to lift. They talked for hours, about small things, big things, everything in between. He told her how he'd been helping his mother sort through his father's things. She told him about the chaos at work, how the team was struggling with a new client. Somewhere between stories and laughter, the distance between them faded. As the cafe lights dimmed for closing, Daniel looked at her and said quietly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." She smiled. "I didn't know if I should." "I'm glad you did," he said. When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The night air smelled of wet pavement and coffee. Daniel offered to walk her to her car. They walked side by side, shoulders brushing occasionally, the silence between them no longer heavy but peaceful. At her car, he paused. "Emily, yes?" He hesitated, then stepped closer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, but seeing you tonight, it feels like something good in the middle of everything bad. Her heart thudded in her chest. Then don't think about what's next, she said softly. Just be here. He smiled, a tired, honest smile. You always make things sound simple. Maybe they are, she whispered. For a second, it felt like the world had slowed. Like the streetlights, the breeze, the quiet, all existed just for them. Then he reached out and hugged her. It wasn't a quick, polite hug. It was one of those moments where time stops, where two people hold on a second longer than they should because it feels like safety. When he finally pulled away, his voice was low. You should go before I change my mind and make you stay. She smiled faintly. Would that be such a bad thing? He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, Maybe not. He watched her drive away, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Her heart felt both full and confused. She had wanted this, to see him again, to talk, to laugh. But now that it had happened, she didn't know what it meant. Was it closure or a beginning? The next morning, she found a message on her phone. It was from Daniel. Thank you for yesterday. I didn't realize how much I needed someone to listen. Let's meet again soon, if you want. She read the message twice, then 3 times. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she finally typed back. I'd like that. That one small reply opened a door neither of them could close again. Over the next few weeks, they started talking regularly. Sometimes it was a quick call during lunch, other times a late-night chat about nothing and everything. There were no confessions, no labels, just connection. Emily found herself smiling at her phone more often. Daniel's texts were thoughtful, funny, sometimes even vulnerable. He wasn't the untouchable man from the office anymore. He was real, human, someone who had cracks and warmth in equal measure. One evening, as they talked on the phone, he said something that made her heart flutter. You know, Emily, I used to think you were quiet because you didn't have much to say. Now I realize you were just waiting for someone who'd listen. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled and whispered, Maybe. From that day on, something shifted between them. Their messages grew softer, deeper. Every conversation felt like a step closer to something fragile and beautiful. But Emily knew better than to rush. Life had already shown her how easily things could fall apart. So she held on to the moments, the laughter, the quiet understanding, without expecting anything more. Until one evening, when Daniel said, I'm back in town next week. Maybe we can meet? Her heart skipped. I'd love that. The day of their meeting, she felt like she was living inside a dream. She arrived early at the same cafe where they had met again weeks ago. The same table by the window, the same soft hum of music. Then Daniel walked in, wearing that same familiar coat, the one from that night months ago when everything had started. He looked at her and smiled. And in that moment, it felt like no time had passed at all. They talked, laughed, and for a while it was perfect. But as the evening grew darker, something in Daniel's eyes changed. A shadow, a hesitation. He looked at her quietly and said, There's something I should tell you. Her smile faded. What is it? He took a deep breath. I'm leaving again. The world seemed to tilt. Leaving? Where? Back home, he said softly. For good, maybe. My mom's not doing well. She needs me there. Emily felt her heart drop, the air around her growing heavier. When? End of the week. For a moment, neither spoke. The cafe noise faded into the background. Finally, she whispered, Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I didn't want this, us, to feel like it had an expiration date. She looked away, blinking back the sting in her eyes. So that night, when you said it felt like something good in the middle of everything bad. He nodded slowly. It still does, but sometimes even the good things have to wait. Emily sat there in silence, trying to find words that wouldn't break her. When they finally stood to leave, Daniel looked at her like he wanted to say more, but didn't. He just said, You'll understand someday. She forced a smile. Maybe. As he walked away, the soft chime of the cafe door closing behind him, she stood frozen, watching his reflection fade in the glass window. She finally got her moment back. She found him. She talked to him. But as the cold air rushed in through the open door, Emily realized something that made her heart ache. Finding him wasn't the same as keeping him. Some stories don't begin with grand declarations. They start in quiet moments, in soft messages that arrive after midnight, in long pauses where two people try to say what words can't hold. That's how it began again for Emily and Daniel. Not with promises, not with plans, but with connection. The kind that felt fragile and real all at once. After Daniel told her he was leaving, she had expected silence again. But instead, the opposite happened. They talked even more. Every day, every night. It was as if the thought of distance made them want to hold tighter. Their messages became a routine. Good mornings filled with warmth. Good nights filled with unspoken things. He called her one evening, voice softer than usual. "I'll miss this, you know." She smiled faintly. "The late-night talks?" "No," he said. "You." Her heart stopped for a second. He didn't say it like a confession. He said it like a truth that had existed for a while, just waiting to be spoken. That night, Emily lay awake, thinking of him. She had wanted this for so long, to be seen, to be wanted. But now that it was happening, she felt something else too. Fear. Because when you finally get close to someone who once felt unreachable, you realize how easy it is to lose them. Daniel left at the end of that week, just as he said he would. But he didn't vanish this time. He called from airports, from train stations, from quiet evenings on his mother's porch. He sent her photos, the lake behind his house, the old piano his father used to play, the dog that now followed him everywhere. Through every message, Emily felt him closer than ever, yet miles away. Weeks passed like that. They weren't officially together, but everything between them said they were something. Something real. Something undefined. One night, she asked softly, "What are we, Daniel?" He paused for a long time before answering. "Something I don't want to lose." That was enough for her, for a while. Their connection grew in the quiet. Every call had laughter, every silence had meaning. Emily started writing again, filling her journal with thoughts she couldn't say aloud. He told her about his dreams, starting his own design firm, rebuilding his father's workshop. They built a small world through screens and words, both aware of how temporary it might be, yet unwilling to stop. Then came that evening, the one that changed everything. It was late, and Daniel called her out of the blue. His voice sounded different, alive, almost excited. "Guess what?" "What?" she asked, smiling. "I got a job offer. A big one. Back in the city." Her heart skipped. "You're coming back?" "Yeah," he laughed. "If I accept it, I just don't know if it's the right time." "Why not?" He hesitated. "Because I'm scared I'll mess up what we have." Emily didn't know what to say. For months they had existed in a safe space, close but distant, real but untouchable. The thought of seeing him again thrilled her and terrified her at the same time. When he finally returned, they met again. Same cafe, same corner table. But this time, everything felt different. He hugged her before sitting down, holding her a second longer than before. His scent, his warmth, it felt like home. "You look good," he said with that familiar half-smile. "You look tired," she teased. He laughed. Always. They talked for hours. About his move, her projects, and everything in between. The tension between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was alive, electric. Every word carried something underneath, something neither dared to say. When the cafe closed, he walked her outside. The night air was cool, the city lights soft around them. She turned to him, heart racing. "You're really back." He nodded. "For now." He stepped closer, eyes locked with hers. "You know, Emily, I used to think about this. Us, when I was away." "What about us?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That maybe if life gave me one more chance, I'd do it right this time." Her breath caught. And what does right mean? He didn't answer with words. He just looked at her. A long, quiet look that said everything words couldn't. That night, under the orange glow of the streetlights, they shared their first kiss. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. It was soft, hesitant, the kind of kiss that feels like both a beginning and an ending. When they pulled apart, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. I should have done that a long time ago. Maybe now was the right time, she whispered. After that night, they began seeing each other more often. Dinners, walks, movies. It wasn't perfect. Daniel was still figuring out his new job, and Emily still carried the fear of losing him again. But in between the chaos, there were moments. Small, beautiful moments that made everything else fade away. He'd show up at her office sometimes just to bring her coffee. She'd leave notes in his bag when he wasn't looking. They didn't talk about the future. They didn't need to. The present was enough. Until one evening, as they sat watching the sunset by the river, Daniel broke the silence. I got another offer, he said. She smiled faintly. Another job? He nodded. In Seattle. It's a big opportunity, but it means leaving again. Her heart sank. You just got here. I know, he sighed. But this could change everything for me. For us, maybe. She looked away, fighting the ache in her chest. For us? He took her hand. Emily, I want you to come with me. The words hit her like a storm. For a second, she couldn't breathe. You mean, move with you? He nodded. Yes, we'll start fresh. New city. New life. She pulled her hand back slowly. Daniel, that's not a small thing to ask. I know, he said gently, but maybe it's the right thing. The sun dipped below the water, turning the sky a deep shade of gold and red. Emily sat in silence, staring at the ripples. She had wanted him for so long, dreamed of being close to him, of being chosen. And now, he was finally asking her to come with him. But something inside her hesitated. Because love built on longing was one thing. Love built on reality was another. Daniel, she said softly, what if we go and it doesn't work? What if we lose what we have? He reached for her hand again. What if we don't? She looked at him, really looked, and saw the same uncertainty she felt. They were both scared, both holding on to something delicate. That night she couldn't sleep. His words echoed in her mind, come with me. She imagined their life together, new city, shared mornings, laughter. But she also saw the risk, leaving everything behind, starting over for something that might not last. By dawn, her heart was split in two. When she saw him the next day, she tried to sound calm. I need time. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand. But his eyes said he didn't. His eyes said, please don't say no. Over the next few days, Emily avoided the topic. They still talked, still met, but there was a quiet tension between them. Every touch felt heavier. Every smile felt borrowed. One night, he showed up at her door unannounced. I got the offer, he said, voice unsteady. They want an answer by tomorrow. She stood frozen, heart racing. That soon? He nodded. I need to know, Emily. Will you come with me? She looked at him. The man she'd loved from afar. The man who'd vanished and returned. Who'd made her feel seen, alive, scared, everything at once. I don't know, she whispered. He stepped closer. I can't do this without you. Tears welled up in her eyes. Maybe you're not supposed to need me to. He closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. I thought you wanted this. I did, she said softly. More than anything. But maybe getting what I wanted isn't the same as being ready for it. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy again. Not like before. Not full of potential, but full of something breaking quietly. Finally, Daniel whispered, I'll wait for your call. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Emily sank onto the couch, trembling. She wanted to chase after him, to say yes, to throw everything away and start over. But her heart, the same heart that had waited, that had hoped, told her something else. Sometimes love isn't about running toward someone. Sometimes it's about standing still and seeing who turns back. That night, as rain began to fall outside, she stared at her phone, his number glowing on the screen. Her thumb hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. She sat there in the quiet, listening to the rain, whispering to herself, if he's meant to stay, he will. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered another truth. What if he doesn't? She had always imagined happy endings looked like two people walking hand in hand toward the sunset. But now, as Emily stood by her window watching the sunrise creep across the skyline, she realized real endings didn't look like that. They were quiet, lonely, the kind that came softly, without sound. Just a slow understanding that something had changed forever. It had been 4 days since Daniel left. 4 long, empty days filled with half-written messages, unsent replies, and the sound of silence louder than ever before. He had gone to Seattle for the new job. She had stayed behind, pretending she was fine. But the truth was, she wasn't. She missed him, his voice, his laugh, the way he'd say her name like it was something fragile. Yet underneath that ache was something else, a strange calm. Because deep down, she knew she had made the right choice. She had wanted him for so long, wanted to be chosen, wanted to be seen, and she had been. But love, she was learning, wasn't about possession. It was about understanding timing, and theirs was never right. Still, the heart doesn't care for logic. It only remembers the warmth. That evening, she found herself walking to the river, the same place where they had talked about leaving, where he had asked her to go with him. The air was cool, the water reflecting the city lights. She stood there for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. The first night they worked late, the cafe, the reunion, the kiss, the goodbye. She smiled sadly. Every memory hurt, but it also reminded her she had lived something real. Then her phone buzzed. A message. From Daniel. I got the apartment. It's small but cozy. Feels strange without you. Her heart tightened. She typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted it. Finally, she wrote, I'm glad you're settling in. Take care of yourself. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then appeared again. He was typing, stopping, thinking. Finally, his message came through. I miss you. She stared at the screen, her vision blurring. It was such a simple message. 3 words that carried everything they had never said out loud. After a long moment, she replied, I miss you too. Then she locked her phone, slipping it back into her pocket. Because some conversations, she realized, are better left unfinished. A few weeks passed. Emily threw herself into work. She started reading again, met friends she hadn't seen in months, even joined a painting class. Slowly, life began to move forward, but there were still moments, small, quiet moments, when his memory would sneak up on her. Like when she passed a cafe that smelled like cinnamon, or heard a song he once sent her at midnight. It was strange how love could live on in details. Then, one Sunday morning out of nowhere he called. She hesitated before answering. Daniel? Hey, his voice came softly through the line. Did I wake you? No, I was just having coffee. Still 2 sugars? She smiled despite herself. You remember? I remember everything, he said quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them felt different now, no longer heavy, but distant. Like 2 people looking at the same sunset from different cities, he finally said, I wanted to tell you something. Go ahead. I'm coming back next month, just for a few days, to clear some things up. Oh. She tried to sound calm, but her heart jumped. That's good. I'd like to see you, he added. If you want to. Emily stared out the window, her chest tightening. Part of her wanted to say yes instantly. The other part whispered caution. Let's see when you're here, she said softly. Okay, he replied, a faint sadness in his tone. I'll text you when I land. After the call ended, she sat in silence, staring at her reflection in the coffee. She realized something. She wasn't the same person who once waited for him endlessly. She had grown stronger in the spaces he left behind. A month later, true to his word, Daniel returned. He texted her that evening. "I'm in town. Same cafe?" Her heart raced. She thought about not going, about letting the past stay in the past. But curiosity, and something softer, pushed her out the door. When she walked into the cafe, time folded on itself. Everything looked the same corner table, the same faint music, the same man waiting by the window, smiling as if no time had passed. "Hey," he said, standing up. "Hey," she replied, sitting across from him. They talked for a while, about work, family, the city. It felt easy again, but different, older, wiser. There was affection in their words, but no expectation. After a long pause, Daniel leaned forward. "You look happy." "I am," she said honestly. "It took time, but I am." He smiled softly. "I'm glad." He hesitated before adding, "You were right, you know." "About what?" "About waiting. About finding yourself first. I rushed everything. I thought love was supposed to fix things." She nodded. "Love doesn't fix us. It just shows us where we're broken." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was filled with things they both understood, but didn't need to say. Finally, Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, a pen. Her eyes widened. "That's the one I lent you that night," he said, smiling faintly. "Found it when I unpacked." "Guess it's yours now." She laughed softly. "You kept it all this time?" "Couldn't throw it away," he admitted. "It reminded me of when everything felt new." She took it gently, fingers brushing his. "Thank you." They sat there in silence again, the kind that wasn't sad anymore, just peaceful. Two people who had finally learned how to say goodbye. Not with pain, but with gratitude. When they stood to leave, Daniel said, "Can I walk you home?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." They walked through the evening streets, side by side, not touching, just sharing the same space. The city was alive with lights and laughter, but between them, there was quiet understanding. At her building, they stopped. He looked at her, eyes soft. "You know, I always thought you'd be the one who'd stay." She smiled gently. "I did stay, just not the way you expected." He looked at her for a long time, then nodded slowly. "You're stronger now." "I had to be." He exhaled, smiling with a mix of sadness and pride. "You deserve someone who doesn't make you wait." "Maybe," she said softly, "I just deserve peace." He stepped closer, almost whispering. "You'll always be special to me." "And you'll always be a part of my story," she replied. They stood there for a moment, two people who once belonged to each other, but had grown into separate worlds. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently, like a goodbye wrapped in gratitude. "Take care, Emily," he said quietly. "You too, Daniel." And with that, he turned and walked away, fading into the soft blur of city lights. Emily stood there until he disappeared from view. Then she looked up at the sky, the same sky they had once shared. She felt the ache, but also peace. She had finally gotten what she wanted. His love, his truth, his goodbye. But more importantly, she had gotten something even greater, herself. That night, she wrote in her journal for the first time in months. "I wanted him to see me. He did, but now I see myself. And maybe that was the real ending all along." She closed the book and smiled. It wasn't the kind of story that ended with forever, but it was one that ended right. And yet, as she turned off the lights and lay down to sleep, her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A new message from Daniel. She hesitated before opening it. "There's something I forgot to tell you." Her heart stopped.